So my question to you guys this week is, how much day-old coffee do you drink typically?
Well, my goal is to drink all of the coffee every day. Uh, so I start the day off with a pot.
Is that your OKR? I've learned that there's a new thing called OKRs, Objective Keepers Results. I don't know. It's the new KPI. I read a whole article about it in InfoQ this morning. OKRs.
I've been working on my PDP, my personal development plan.
Yeah.
And
Go on.
one of my
Are you getting fired, Matt? Right? Isn't it?
No.
Don't you get put on one of those? Like, are you firing yourself? What's going on?
I'm going to give you a little bit of engineering manager inside baseball. I'm supposed to be doing personal development plans, but nobody ever did them. And I've had a browser tab open for 8 months now on how to do this.
That is a drawback of the persistent tabs. It gives you the illusion that I heard someone say in a podcast the other day. They said, "Did you read that?" And he said, "Well, I Instapapered it." I mean, that's like reading it, right?
Oh man!
I think one step in another direction. I don't know if it's below, above, or to the side. Is yeah, I have a tab open.
Well, yeah. I mean, because at any given day, I have between 10 and 20 tabs open, and some of them are always going to be there, like that PDP one, and my 2 email ones. But other than that, I try to get through most of them. But yeah, some of those tabs have been there for a long time. The Mark Anderson's 10 rules for startups or whatever. I'm on like rule 5. But every month or two, I read another rule. So I'm making good progress.
Yeah. Well, you want to keep your eyes on the prize. Eyes on the prize. Yeah, but the original question is we often. So I was out of town this week up at DevOps Day Chicago, and so consequently, Kim does not drink coffee as voraciously as I do, and we had almost a whole pot of coffee left over.
For how many days?
Just from yesterday, and I have been known to drink. I guess maybe eat, depending on how old it is, to drink day-old coffee, because I might wake up early and there's some coffee left over in the pot, and I don't want to wake everyone up with the grinding coffee machine. But I mean, do you have cold coffee? What do you do with this old coffee?
Well, so in our household, it's a race every morning to see who can brew the coffee first. And then we
amongst you, your wife, and your kids.
Yeah, we got to drink it all before the kids get some, or we'll never get them to school.
We'll catch up.
We'll be chasing around the streets. No, we both have 2 cups or so, and then the pot's usually finished. And then I've got a brewer cold brew. A little sneak preview of one of my picks, cold brew coffee, and I keep a gallon or so of that on hand most of the time. So we don't have leftover coffee. The cold brew, I usually drink it within 2 or 3 days.
Okay. So I'm doing okay. I'm not going to die.
I gotta say, Coach, I have no help here. I don't drink any coffee, and then my wife has one of those Keurigs, so it's just single pocket or packet. So she just makes what she wants, and
you're living the dream. No coffee.
I don't know. I just don't. I don't partake in it, so I cannot tell you good or bad.
Well, I'm always glad to be back from a trip because I don't have to drink that weird conference coffee. I think maybe not everyone here knows about it. I mean, you two know about it, but there's that coffee that I'm pretty sure it's just brown water, very dark brown water. And it's the DevOps Day Chicago was in the Gleacher Center, which I don't know. That's a thing. The University of Chicago.
Not a very descriptive title.
Was it a good thing or a bad thing?
Oh no, it was nice. It was a great setting. I liked it. Chicago is a lovely city, I guess, especially this time of year. But man, it's like a real legit city. When I was driving around,
it is the second city.
Oh yeah. When I was driving around, the car driver was saying you see how clean it is around here. Everything's clean. That's a positive result of corruption. Because around here, everyone's in on like the waste management, and we've had 5 governors go to jail, but they actually do stuff for you, like they keep everything clean.
Nice.
And I mean, it was true. It was a very clean city, and I like it. I kept thinking of Ferris Bueller and all that kind of stuff, but I think Chicago is one of those cities that, like, even though it is the second city, it doesn't really come up as much as others, and it'd be fun to go there more. It's nice. But anyways, consequently, I drank a lot of that black, dark brown conference coffee, and it's just a strange, like, I don't even know what that is. Like, it's weird coffee to have to survive through. And I am glad to be back home where I have the real coffee. And I poured out a whole pot of old coffee because I wanted fresh new coffee. But I've been thinking, I'm not going to VMware next week, VMworld. Are you going, Brandon?
I'm not. I'm going to miss out this year.
I guess because RSA is a bigger show. What are the big shows in the identity world?
Black Hat and RSA.
Did you go to Black Hat?
I did not go. I just
You're like, I don't want to be hacked, so I'm not going.
It is. I don't know. Although, it's funny. Everybody that says that Black Hat has changed, like everything, right? The old days were better. Everyone says that Black Hat has become much more corporate, so it's much more like an RSA event than it is like a, rogue band of hackers just attacking everyone. So I hear.
And so does RSA kind of like dominate the security world like VMware does in the infrastructure space?
Well, I think the show certainly, it's probably
conference-wise.
Yeah, it's a very good analogy. Like the show has, I don't know, it'd be great like study to figure out like how certain shows become like the de facto show for a certain segment. Like VMware, I think certainly plays that role, or at least it did, when I've been recently, for kind of IT ops in general. And then RSA definitely is like kind of the de facto security show that really everybody is at, even if you're not, and almost to the point, like even if you're not directly related to security, people still kind of show up, right? Just like out of all the major brands, see everybody. It's always in Moscone, right? So it's kind of that same crew of people.
Now, switching topics slightly, you've been to like all these pragmatic marketer and management training sessions, right? Like you know what you're doing when it comes to product management.
I've been to a lot of training. I don't know. Does one go with the other? I don't know, but yes.
Now, given that credibility, like what's the deal with pricing? And let me give you 2 anecdotes that caused me to ask this. The first one, so Kim has been looking around, my wife, for an app to like help her plan out menus and like tell her what groceries to go buy. It sounds lovely, right? Like automate that whole process.
Right.
And there's many options out there. And all of them so far have like lacked one critical function, right? Like they like she found one that was great, but its menus were obviously randomly generated, right? And so it'd be like, I'm eating, like I remember one menu she had was like, I'm eating a cup of couscous, half of, a fourth, 2 ounces of salmon, and a cup of cottage cheese. And it just like, there was no like thought put into the menus, which for us in the tech world, it's like, oh yeah, because, they want it to be profitable. So they just have a computer randomly picking stuff that fits your criteria.
Right.
So that one was nice. Then she finally did find one that did everything she wanted, but you have to pay $9 a month to have it spit out the grocery store list.
Oh,
right?
okay.
And so she was like, I'm not paying for that. There should be a free thing for this. Like, why would I pay for that? And
okay.
and I don't mean this to make her sound bad, because I think this is psychology of pricing, but it's like, well, the reason you should pay for it because you found no other alternative, right? Like this is the one thing that does everything you want, and hence it's valuable, and it's not that big of a deal. But obviously there's in this software space, there's this, like that pricing doesn't work out for her for some reason. Now, alternatively, you go in and sell enterprise software and people are like, oh, that's really expensive, right? Like we don't want to pay for that software at all. And yet, like, so this is how this came up to thinking about you is like, the identity management space is old, is mature. So I think people are kind of used to paying for it. But every time some new type of software or technology comes out, and we have this problem sometimes with Cloud Foundry, like, not as much as would be terrible, but it's sort of like, how do you establish with the market that you should be paying for this thing, right? Especially like in enterprise software. Like it's weird to kind of feel that out with a new category.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is where dreams come true, right? On building enterprise niches and new segments. So I think let's go back to Kim though, right? The triangle, people always, some variation of this triangle is what people talk about. Urgent, like you have a new product, and so does it meet the test of urgent, pervasive, willing to pay, right? Usually, almost any problem we could identify will solve 2 of the 3, but very hard to like unlock all 3. So in the case of Kim, right, is it urgent? Like, yeah, I mean, she definitely wants to know what to eat. Is it pervasive? Yeah, I'd say most people in like her demographic are probably facing that same kind of question. Are they willing to pay? It sounds like absolutely not, right? And how do they
Right.
solve that problem? Is that they just do it manually, this is the version of all enterprise software. It's like, well, Kim's just like, you know what? In lieu of that, I'll just figure it out. I'll go to the grocery store and I'll either randomly buy my own stuff, or I'll just grab a list, or I'll just talk to Cote and he'll tell me what he wants, whatever, right? So most problems, I think, fall into that category, right? They are solved in brute force manual ways, and people don't want to pay because none of us want to give money. So like anytime someone's asked you like who's your biggest competitor, it's always homegrown. We'll just
Absolutely. Right.
ourselves, right? So that's how you always start. Now, to get above that though, I think is you have to deliver so much value that it's just overwhelmingly obvious that it's a lot more. If you want to do a productivity play, so let's go back to the example with Kim, right? Instead of $9 a month, if that had been 99 cents one time, let's say it was just an app and it just sort of like automatically did everything. My guess is she would have clearly bought it. She would have been like, absolutely,
Probably.
for $1 for maybe in perpetuity, I can use this thing. I'm going to do it. And versus whatever the $99 ends up to be, probably like $100 a year, right? Which is not surprising because I'm sure the guy that modeled that on their SaaS app was trying to get to $100 per annual subscriber. So, I think it kind of comes down back to that. So how do you get people to, when you're into a new category, you always have to, one, find the group of people that are passionate about solving the problem and really experience the pain, right? The pain of, if I had a product to do this, I could spend a lot more time doing it and not have to spend so much time on the maintenance side of it, right? So this is where like stuff like I'm sure Matt can talk about automation, right? Automation been around for a long time, but it was really just a guy in a corner that had to write all the scripts, and that got way too expensive, and hence, Chef is now here. So so to anyone building a product or trying to price it, like that's where you have to go, right? You have to have overwhelming value at the beginning, and if you don't have that, you're going to probably win 1 or 2 customers and not have a big business.
Right. So you always need overwhelming value, and then the other thing that's nice to have is you're the only one who can offer it, right? Or otherwise, including people doing things on their own, right? Like I could do all this, I could build this thing on my own. Why would I buy it from you? Like I could get to that same level of awesomeness, and then at that point, you're basically in a competition to somehow politely tell a buyer that they cannot build it on their own. Exactly. Right. And you got to wangle through that landmine.
And the other thing that everyone in marketing and product management, I think just anyone in products are always trying to attach themselves is to something beyond just the problem, like the movement. So there's a pretty good article that was making the rounds. I think it's been out for a while, written by Stuart Butterfield, now the co-founder or founder of Slack, and before that Flickr. And it's I guess it's an excerpt of an email he sent to his team right as they were about to launch Slack, right, to the public. And it's titled like, "We don't sell saddles here." And the metaphor he's talking about is like, Slack is not just a chat program, right? It's really a revolutionary way of communicating with teams, right? And it takes away email, and it takes away thing. And so, we can probably debate whether that vision came true, but no doubt they've tapped into something much bigger than like HipChat or IRC, and they've kind of made it a bigger movement. Now, again, there could be a backlash. Maybe it doesn't ultimately fulfill that promise, but that's where you see these like incredible growth things happening. It's like same thing about Instagram. Instagram isn't about posting pictures, right? It's about sharing memories, right, or something like that. It's tapped into a whole nother level. So that's really the thing that people want. You could argue maybe Chef, Matt can jump in and tell me, but like some of these things, DevOps in that book, right? DevOps isn't around like automation scripts and in Ruby, right? It's about a movement, and that's been pretty successful. So that's the other thing that when you're so maybe for Kim, right? Let's go back to Kim. It said like maybe she would have bought that if it wasn't just about the recipes, but it was about a new way of eating for your children that's going to be fundamentally make them better, right? Now suddenly $100 to save my children doesn't sound nearly as bad as like
can I pay more?
Right. So I mean that's what you always want to get to. But again, like there's just teams of people in the world, millions of us just sitting around thinking about that. So much easier said than done.
Yeah, pricing always difficult. It's a strange and then it just reduces down to such a simple thing, but people get very hung up on that. You know, another strange counterintuitive phenomenon, just for the listeners, since I was up at the DevOps days recently, whenever you're at a conference and people have a lot of like swag items on their table, you can just take it. Like they bring it there for you to take. Like it's funny. Like every conference I go to where I'm like at a table or a booth, people will like ask you if they can take something, and you'll be like, yeah, take a lot of it. Like take as much as you want. And they're like, are you sure? But it's like, yes, just take stuff. That's why it's there.
Swag is expensive though. I mean, I always
right, but it's sort of like the social contract of like, you're an attendee, I'm a vendor. The stuff is on the table. I have brought it here to lure you over here, but I've also brought it here for you to take. So take it.
No, I was looking.
We're not charging.
Well, yeah, I was looking at internal pricing for things, and you may recall from an earlier episode we were talking about the Standard Bank white paper.
Yes.
It's like 20 pages, 24 pages or so on like super heavy cardstock, and those things are like $6 or $7 a pop. Yeah.
I know. It just like we were talking about, you're probably thinking I could go to Kinko's and Xerox this out myself, and then it would be like $4 a pop.
Man. Yeah, 5 cents a page, and it'll have that like smeared photocopy look to it, and like
some coffee rings on it.
Yeah, that impresses the buyers.
Yeah, this is real gritty stuff. So you're going to VMworld next week, right, Matt Ray?
Am I ever?
What are you going to be doing there? Are you going to be
swag?
Are you hanging out at the booth? Are you going to be doing some meetings?
I'm doing
some markdown.
All the above. All of the above. I'll be there Friday, Sunday night.
Ooh, going in on the weekend.
Yeah, because I start at 8 a.m. Monday. I've got calls. At 8 a.m. with people who are in Europe. Got to call them at ungodly hours. And oh my God, I finished that day with an 11 p.m. call with Australia. So yeah, I'm talking to 4 continents on Monday. But
have you guys considered using Slack? That might save your problems.
So the problem is, like, yes, we use Slack, and we have caught Slack fever. Or madness, or whatever.
Has it left you slack-jawed? I can call my ma from up here.
Hey, Ma! So, and this thought occurred to us yesterday as we were talking about how pervasive Slack had become. Is Slack like Google Waves 3 years later? Like they just messed it up so badly that, Slack came in and did it right? Or did nobody use Waves and we all just assumed that that's what it was meant to be?
There were a lot of people using Wave, and a lot, more than none, right? And there were people experimenting with it and things like. I just feel like Wave had like a terrible UI, like just most like most all Google things, and it was just like. It's kind of like I remember having the experience with it like I have with Google Plus, and I know there's many people who don't have this experience and they love Google Plus, but like
nobody loves Google Plus.
Well, I
just people who use Google Plus.
Yeah, I just log into Google Plus and I'm like, I don't know what this thing wants from me, right? Like I don't know how to like interact with it, and like I understand there's kind of like somewhat randomly placed chunks of content here, and like. I mean, as people, some people probably know, like I'm kind of like an RSS fuddy-duddy, right? It's like, I want a reverse chronology of items, one line each scrolling that get marked as red as I scroll past them, right?
Every time I log into Facebook, I have to click newsfeed, sort oldest to or newest to oldest or whatever. Like every time, and the apps refuse to like save that is how you
Yeah.
like to think about the world.
And to use one of Brandon's old metaphors, right? Like I more want like, well, I'm using this metaphor wrong, but like I prefer the early 2000s idea of a river where you check into the river and you can see it. But the river nowadays is more like a bunch of like what is it you go rafting in with all the white snow caps? Rapids. Like the rivers now are just like these rapids that have no rhyme or reason, and they're more Heraclitan or whatever, where you just like stick your head in there and know who knows what's going to happen.
And there's somebody pushing rocks towards you to make sure you see them,
Yeah.
because they're advertisers.
Yeah. They need to get off my lawn. So you're you're going to be at VMworld now. Are you actually going to be at the booth?
Oh yeah.
You're going to be demoing. So what do you do when you're at a booth, Matt Ray? Like, do you just kind of like, you've been around Ops Code Come Chef long enough. Are you just sort of like, you can have any conversation, or are they like, oh, that's the cloud person, you should go talk to them? Or are you like throwing glowing balls up in the air so you can bring people over, or scanning badges? Like, what's your general plan of approach?
Wow, you just hit like 3 or 4 anecdotes there. VMworld last year was the most aggressive booth people I've ever seen. Like,
yeah.
You know, the ones where you're walking by and they're like, hey, you want to come talk about our product? You're like, no, thanks, just walk in here. And no, they would like grabbing you as you're walking by to scan your badge. The booth people who get like paid by the badge scan, they're not there. You know, oh God. That's not me. What I do, yeah, I'm working the booth when I am available. But we've got 5 sessions we're participating in as a company. All
right.
So,
are you doing the DevOps days, or the DevOps thing that they have?
We are. Jez Humble, our VP, one of our VPs, he's given a keynote or something there. And then there's a chef VMware workshop that one of the Momentum SI guys is hosting, but I'm acting as a proctor, there to help out with the workshop.
Ooh, does that mean you get a clipboard?
I don't know what I get. We're making it up
stick
as we go.
You can bash people?
Probably not. And then...
well, I'm glad I'm not going then. This sounds like it's going to be boring. if there's not
going to be violence,
yeah.
If there's not violence, this is not the itchy and scratchy for me. Yeah.
I see. So you just kind of hang out at the booth, and if people come up, you're like, hey, what's going on? Can I scan your badge?
Yeah.
Do you scan badges, Matt Ray?
I do.
Yeah.
Now,
let me ask you this. Both of you guys have been kind of on various sides of conference stuff. Now, when you go to a big conference, your VMworlds, your Java ones, or whatever, like why do the vendors pay a lot of money? Why do they actually have to like scan the badges? Why don't they just give them all the email addresses?
Well, when there's 24,000 people coming to VMworld, you have to have some sort of filter over that list. You can't just say, "Oh, here's our guest list. Spam all of them." You only get to spam the ones who come and visit your booth in exchange.
So in theory, gaming the system aside, in theory, when you scan someone, it's because there's someone you're actually interested in talking with, not just broadcasting to.
Yes. Yeah. So we actually typically, the booth we're scanning badges, and like the more modern badge scanners allow you to enter comments into them. A lot of them now are just like Android tablets or iPods, and so you can like type in a comments field, and so those get flagged on the conversation, so you can go back and tell your salespeople, hey, this is you need to call this guy Monday, or this guy just wanted a T-shirt.
Right.
And so you try to do a little bit of triage on the leads to qualify them. If somebody comes up the booth and they've been looking for you and you talk to them for 25 minutes, that's much better than the guy who's makes eye contact just long enough to say, can I grab this T-shirt?
Right.
So you try to do a little bit of qualifying there, but yeah, so there is a little bit of method to the madness of badge scanning. You want to get a good you want to get a large number of leads, obviously, because surprisingly, software is about making money. But you want to get a good number of leads and then get good quality leads out of those. Yeah.
I will say though, Cote, it's really size of conference. Many of the smaller conferences will give you all the attendees at the end of the show, so you don't have to. You don't actually have to do any scanning. So there's a good thing to know. Like if you're at a conference and there's no one scanning, that means they've already sold your email address to everybody. But
that's a good tip.
But then the conference,
community events don't do that. Or well,
yes.
some. So like as an organizer for like DevOps Days or Texas Linux Fest, like you would get the vendors. The vendors always ask. They're like, "Can we have the guest list or the attendee list?" And we're always like, "Nope."
Yeah.
And some of them will even offer to pay for it. They're like, "Can we just give you an extra $800 and you give us the leads?" You're like, nope. You gotta rent a scanner.
Yeah. Right. People in lead gen are sort of odd. I mean, and they're predictably odd. But like we sell to like large companies, right? So we do large deals. So for us, like volume of leads is not really as important as like good conversations we've had that lead in otherwise. So, and it sort of gives me a different perspective versus someone who's more into a high volume, higher transaction type of way of doing things. But to that end, like I always find like things like DevOps Days, and I'm probably maybe not if we were at Linux Fest, but like leadless conferences are pretty good because anytime you actually get someone's contact information, they're highly interested.
Right. The conference is high qualified just by the attendees, just by being there, right?
Yeah. Well, and usually I have a stack of business cards that I leave out there. So I'm like, scan the badges, sure, but here's my card, and hand these to people if the conversation's right.
Right. And that's the other go-to, right? It's like the two things. Like if someone asks you for your card at a conference, it means it's like they really think you're valuable, right? Because just what Mary says, like, there's all these scanners and you can enter comments in, but it's very awkward. It's kind of painful. It never works as quickly as you want. It's always like, give me your card, and then you write on the back like hot lead or like call him Monday. Which is always becomes like the de facto. So it's funny, like the paper card is the sign of like this is an important moment.
Yeah. Tied with that ribbon. These are like the Glengarry leads or whatever.
That's right.
And I sit on the plane on the flight home, and I go through the cards that I get, and I write an email for each one of those. And
really? You do it on the plane ride home?
I try to, because that way I still have context and
follow up. I got to get on.
And then I don't buy the Wi-Fi on the plane, and so I hit like send when I land, and like 20 emails go out.
What are you using? Mail app there?
I'm using emacs, and I'm writing them off. Yes.
Holy crap, Matt Ray! Can you click an emacs?
Yeah. I write the emails.
What are you using? Mule there or something? What are you using emacs nowadays?
It's actually very low tech. I write the emails. And then when I land, I'm pasting them into Google Mail.
You should automate that with some chef scripts.
That's not what we do. We're not Mailgun. I mean, come on. I try to be diligent about following up on things.
Huh. Well, yeah, we'll have to see. I am not in the loop about exciting news at VMworld, so I have no idea. But it should be fun. I mean, there's all these rumors of what's going to happen in this federation that I'm employed by, and this, that, and the other, and I don't know. Something will happen that'll be fun.
Well, and the hot
that next week.
Well, the hot rumors keep coming back that now the rumor is that VMware is going to buy EMC. Not I don't know. There's some sort of Greek mythology in there, I'm sure, about children eating their parents, but because aren't they having like musical chairs for the management over there? Everybody's moving around and retiring.
Well, I was thinking about this, and I don't know how the rest of the EMC world is, but at Pivotal we get bonuses twice a year, and we just got our bonuses in July. So that if the other EMC companies also get bonuses twice a year, that would explain why all of a sudden people change jobs, right? Because the economical, the rational thing to do is to wait till you get paid a bonus before you leave a job, which is to suggest that many times when I have changed jobs, I have not done that because I don't always rationally think. But I'd be curious to see if in at VMware and EMC if they also get this, because that would explain why all of a sudden there's like people who have been moving on to new jobs.
There's probably like a researcher, working at LinkedIn who would love to dive into that data, like who changes jobs after when, because it's like every OpenStack summit, 6 weeks after the summit, there's a whole raft of people changing jobs.
That makes sense.
They all come to the summit, hang out at all the parties, and then all change jobs or the companies get acquired. It happens every time. And I bet like at VMware, it's probably just this, within the federation, there's this motion of jobs.
Yeah, no, I mean, when I was at Dell, it was like bonuses are paid in March. They actually go to your account in March because the fiscal year ended in February, and so like it's like people leave, right? Like people change their jobs like once they get maximum payout, and so that's just a logical big company stuff.
And I bet if the sales calendars aligned, you could see salespeople changing. Between companies every like annually or whenever they have the annual reviews.
Yeah. The more you know, that's what's going on there. So, speaking of OpenStack, you were alluding to our buddies Mirantis just got a ton of money from Intel, right? Like $100 million. And there was also I didn't follow it that closely, but there was the annual OpenStack Silicon Valley conference earlier this week, I think, where a bunch of OpenStack chatter there. It looks like there was some fun sessions coming out of there. But yeah, that's a lot of money for it. I mean, it seems like Mirantis is sitting pretty high and pretty in the OpenStack area.
And the last man standing, right?
They've been able to survive through everything and suck up all the stuff. And I remember I talk with some people over there every now and then, and they do pretty big deals and have a lot of engagement. So their business seems all right.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that Intel. I think Intel was about half of that, something like 45 million of the 100 million.
Yeah.
Some of the analysts discussion about that was like, well, of course Intel's going to invest in that because that's one of the few things left that is going to move a lot of CPUs.
Yes. Yeah. And then also there was also news that Brandon's favorites, Mesosphere, they signed a big partnership with Verizon, right? If I remember, and that seemed like it would bring them some high numbers. They had my favorite phrase from that press release was cohesive entity. I think that's the new byword. What's going on in this stuff? You're getting a cohesive entity.
Cool.
Yeah, it wires them up to like.
So which one is more valuable? Which one do you think has more exciting prospects ahead of it? Mesosphere, or what was the one we were just talking about?
OpenStack.
OpenStack.
Yeah, I don't know. At this, like
kind of interesting. They were just because I just thought it was funny. They did the funding. I'm sure just random, right? Just kind of happened on the same time. And it's like, oh, that's kind of interesting.
Well, that is like fresh off talking to the random folks up in Chicago. But it's representative of what I tend to see. It'd be interesting to see what you see at VMworld next week. But it's almost like everyone's considering everything. Like there's tends to be most everything is on the table, and there's very little certainty about this is the one way to do things.
Yeah.
Right? So like I talk with. It was actually interesting. This is one of the first times where organically there was an open spaces at DevOps Days about Cloud Foundry. So apart from us going and doing something, someone came and talked about Cloud Foundry. It was fun. It was full of some people, and we got to talk about it. But that crowd wants to try out every single thing out there. Nothing's really like coalesced. Really.
Yeah. Well, and I've had this conversation before where it's a lot more fractured than it used to be about how you deploy your applications, how infrastructure is run, and there's not going to be a winner takes all. There'll be plenty of people making lots of money, but it's not going to. I really don't think you're going to see somebody, recreate VMware's dominance, where like a whole generation of infrastructure was defined as we're going to VMware, or we're everyone's going to Windows. I don't think you're going to see such seismic changes again. Because now it's like, oh, everyone's going to Docker, except for those going to Cloud Foundry, except for those going to Kubernetes, except for those going to Mesosphere. And hey, meanwhile, there's still a whole lot of people, running data centers. And, I mean, if you're comparing, Mirantis versus Mesosphere, it's like, God, they in a way they are competing with each other, right?
Yeah.
But well, I don't know. It is interesting because Cote, what is the thing you're writing about all the time? The native apps and the
cloud native platform.
So yeah, wow, that was a lot of marketing words there. But yeah, that thing.
Brandon, you don't choose the marketing words; they choose you.
That's true. That's actually that I am touche, my good friend.
Do you have the marketing life tattoo?
Yeah.
I was gonna say though, but that does seem to your point, Matt. It's like it certainly isn't here today, but it does seem like a generation is when that becomes like, yeah, this is what that. I know, Cote, you're sort of helping shape this, right? And obviously Pivotal in general and lots of other companies, and I'm sure including IBM but like when that kind of gets settled out, like this is what it means to be a cloud native app, and this is what you would expect, and this is how you will build it. Like, I don't know if it's winner take all, but like it does seem like a whole area that is going to eventually, something's going to coalesce, and this is what we're all going to understand. Like this is what we mean. Whereas today, like when I read about it, it means like a lot, right? Like 50 different people are proposing things, and that won't last forever.
Yeah.
I think it will. I don't think there's going to be a consolidation. I think because it's so much easier to share big ideas now than it was 15 years ago. It's like, oh, we run things on Mesosphere, and you know what? That's open source. We dug into it. We didn't like it. We wrote our own thing. Here it is for you to use. And then, Mesosphere's 20% of the market just got fractured again.
Yeah. I mean, I can't help be but biased kind of like talking about this stuff, but to try to be as unbiased as possible, I think it is like, I sort of see it as I used to call it a burger. There's like this board of functionality, right? Like you got your infrastructure, you've got like containers in the Java sense, runtimes, the thing that runs and coordinates your processes running. And then there's like, programmers in the middleware and framework, like the actual applications that you have. And every vendor, like somewhere, they start in that stack differently, and they have a different opinion about how big that stack is and what the picture is and like where it is. So like if you go to someone like a Mirantis, their part of the stack is the infrastructure at the bottom, right? Like you gotta run all your infrastructure as a service, and that'll give you all the flexibility that you need. And then just layer that stuff on top, right? Like whatever you run your applications on there. And someone like a Mesosphere, and to a certain extent a Docker, is in the infrastructure part and the orchestration like middle part. We're like, oh, you can run stuff here and specify and package what it looks like, and we can control that. And then like, the Pivotal perspective is like, we do all of that, right? Like we have strong opinions about how you manage all of this stuff, and ignore kind of like the mechanics of how the infrastructure works and all your containers and things like that, and just focus on doing applications. And so it's all sort of like, I think what hasn't happened is the market, the buyers haven't decided what they want, right? Like, do you want to manage, do you need to and want to manage infrastructure a lot and then build your applications on that? Or do you only want to write applications, or what do you want to do? And like, it's not really clear what they should pick. I mean, obviously, I think they should pick whatever favors Pivotal, right? Like, pick the easiest thing. But to use a historic analogy,
until
right?
you work somewhere else.
Yeah. No, I should say, I think the part of the reason that I think they should pick that is because, like, I think more like a developer, right? Like, as Matt Ray knows, he's the person I used to go to a lot to be like, what the fuck is this Linux stuff, right? Like, how do I do this? And I don't want to trouble myself with all of this. Like, I just want to write code, right?
Yeah.
And so if you have a very high level, as I do, software developer perspective, you're kind of like, I don't want to know anything about infrastructure. If I have to read a man page, there's a failure, right? Like, I just want to deploy my stuff and have it be all.
I just want to throw it over that wall.
Exactly, right? And so, like, and to use another analogy, right? Like, some of the I've met many listeners of this, so now I know some of them are old enough. Like, people will remember RAD, like rapid application development, right? Or case tools or 4GLs, and this is another iteration of the idea of like, don't worry yourself with infrastructure, right? Like, it shouldn't be the case that as a developer, I give you a blinking cursor of an SSH shell to log into, off to the races, right? Which is a lot of what LAMP stack and things were for a long time. And I think back in the Java days, we had an interesting intermediate area where it was like, make a war file and deploy it, right? And you don't necessarily need to know so much. And that works out sometimes and not other times. And so I don't know. I mean, it really does come down to what the market ends up wanting, right? Like, do you want to build all this infrastructure? And I talk to people, I wouldn't say all the time, but frequently, who they want to. Like, they see that as their job to build the infrastructure from the bottom and always know about it and also develop the software. And I'll talk to people who only want to develop the software, and on and on and on. And like, because there's so much fragmentation and choice in the market, like, people need to start figuring out what they want, or just continue a fragmented market, which
no, but that's what I would say.
Really
I think at some point it does come back together at some point, right? That
yeah.
People generally start to say, this is the pattern, this is what I expect. When I'm a developer and I go from company A to company B, I can expect to kind of work at the same level of encapsulation.
Yep.
And I think that's just, I mean, that it just plays out over several years. And that's why it's interesting, like the mesosphere, what was it? What was the phrase? It was like integrated complexity.
The cohesive entity.
Yeah, so maybe that's the cohesive entity that wins out, or maybe it's people want to continue to kind of piecemeal it together, right, with infrastructure. So it'll be interesting to watch.
Good times. You know, also, I saw that delightful video that you guys have, Matt Ray, with the eggs being launched. they had it on repeat at their booth, and it was their booth with you guys. This table was on the way to the bathroom, so it's interesting. Maybe this is this an availability heuristic or flaw in logic? I think the part that I saw the most was it's Nathan, right, who's getting hit with eggs. Like the part where he's like defending himself against the eggs the most. And then Jacob's massive beard. I mean, Adam Jacob's massive beard. I would see all the time too. But like,
that's most of the video right
over and over again. Yeah. That's it. That's a great video.
It's definitely one of the highlights to see like what are they going to come up with this year, right? Yeah, and Chef Conf is coming to Austin next year.
So before we close out, Matt Ray.
Yes.
Speaking of VMware, can you explain what's going on with Microsoft's cloud? This is I was looking because they announced some container support, and so I've been reading through that, and it occurred to me, and I'm not obviously because I'm not ashamed to admit this, is like I never really learned Microsoft's cloud strategy very well, right? Yeah. And so since you're doing Markdown and BizDev, like I assume you kind of know like what's going on with their cloud stuff. Like what's the deal?
What's up with that?
Like, do you get a service pack so you can run Azure on your Windows server or not? Or like how are they managing all of this?
So they announced they're joining the Open Container Initiative, which one is that? Is that the Docker one or is that the Kubernetes one? I think it's the Docker one. Yeah, it's the Docker one. And they announced they're joining that, and they announced that Windows Server 2016 is going to have containers, but it's not Linux containers; it's Windows containers. So they're going to have their own stripped down process isolation for Windows as a native thing, and then you can wrap those inside of Hyper-V, so you can have your containers protected from the operating system with virtualization, because that's still the thing. Or you can go straight containers on the OS if you are worried about your 3% overhead or whatever, you get penalty. And so it's not a portability story. It's not like, oh, my Linux containers, I just moved them over to Windows, and now they're Windows containers. But you can run your Windows VMs on Hyper-V, or your Linux VMs on Hyper-V, and bring your Linux containers over to that. But the APIs that Microsoft is using are the Docker APIs. So they said, we're going to let your tooling that works in the Docker ecosystem is going to work in the Windows.
So this is like a VMware OpenStack distro situation.
Exactly. Right. We're gonna co-opt those APIs, and we're
co-opt. We're maybe use. Is that the?
we're going to extend
Embrace. We're going
Embrace
to
and
embrace
extend.
and then extend. Oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
Package.
Microsoft, they still got some old tricks.
Have we seen this before?
Yeah, we may have seen this before, but so they're doing containers too. They're doing Docker APIs,
Right.
and so it's a mix of the Linux strategy with the Docker strategy with the. But at the end of the day, like they want to get everyone to Azure, and for the most part, that means the hosted version, not
not the server version,
the cloud.
Right.
But the APIs to the public cloud will be the same to the private cloud. So you'll be able to do hybrid cloud.
Right. Now, do they have a private cloud? If you wanted to install a Microsoft private cloud,
Yeah.
do they have that?
I think they do. I'm not sure how far along it is in the. I think it's been announced, and isn't Dell a partner in that? I mean, I think a couple of the like hardware vendors are where you buy like converged infrastructure, and it is your Azure private cloud thing.
But there's not just like some chunk of software you can get from Microsoft that's like private cloud.
I'm coming up to speed on that.
Perfect.
I have.
Stay tuned for next week's episode.
Well, I actually I just had a guy start on my team to work on Azure. So
yeah, see, this is great. This is why you're on the podcast, Matt Ray. So something intelligent comes out every now.
Well, yeah, but I go to him. I'm like, make me sound smart.
Cloud boy. Give him some of that silver spray paint for his face when he needs to go to tech ed or build or whatever it is they do. Make sure he gets witnessed. That sounds great. Well, before we get into recommendations, why don't you tell people about the special discount they can get? What's this Chef Community Summit, Matt Ray?
Oh yeah. So as listeners may know, Chef is open source, and we have a fairly large and active open source community, and so we have a community summit every year in Seattle. And about 200 or 300 folks come up to Seattle, and we have an unconference, 2 days of, what would you like to talk about? What do you want to hack on? That's it. And
come throw eggs at Nathan.
Come throw eggs at Nathan. There's a booth. We should do that. But it's not a conference. I mean, there's no vendor booths or anything like that. No. It's just, hey, come and talk with users and developers, and so it's kind of like the
oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah, and so we have a discount code for our listeners. If you'd like to save 20% on your Chef Community Summit ticket, if you use the discount software, as in software defined talk, you can save yourself 20%. And I think August 31st is the end of early bird. So if
you have it in Seattle and London.
Yeah. The code works both places. So it's going to be in Seattle middle of October, and it's going to be in London November 3rd and 4th.
Now, are you going to be at both of these, Matt Ray?
I'm going to be at both, and I'm going to be taking my favorite British Airways flight.
Oh, nice. I on the O'Hare to DFW flight. I think I was on one of their new airlines. It's one of the not BA, but on the American one that has the what is it, the six like maybe 9 seats across, like in coach. Like it was a big one. It was kind of like the BA one. It's fun. Yeah. Well, also, if you're interested in Pivotal stuff, you can get 2 free months at Pivotal Web Services, the public version of Pivotal Cloud Foundry Rerun. Well, I'll put a link in the show notes, but you can go to cote.io/pivotal. and sign up there. Get a free book on microservices too, from our buddy Matt Stein. And with that, you have anything you want to announce, Brandon? Any LDAP integration? What's going on over there?
Something to sell there?
No, I don't. I just say, hey, people, enable two-factor authentication on your Facebook account. Get it done. That's it.
Yeah. Yep, that's a good idea. So recommendations this week. Now, I'm going to take the first slot because it's been a long time. So I have a Costco recommendation this week. I think I've recommended it before, but I want to detail out. This is recommended use. Now, you can buy. It's probably almost a gallon of organic peanut butter because you have to buy the 2 units together.
Mm-hmm.
But you buy the 2 organic peanut butter units together. And my wife Kim and I, we've been discussing: do you need to refrigerate peanut butter? This is a discussion we've been having. And, I think if there's like sugar and a bunch of other stuff in the peanut butter, like you probably need to refrigerate it because chemicals and stuff. But I often get that peanut butter that where you just like at the store, like you grind the peanuts into a bucket of peanut butter. And my thinking is like, they weren't refrigerating those peanuts. Why would I refrigerate them ground up? Right. And then so I keep them in the pantry. And I want to do this because I want it to be spreadable. Like you put peanut butter in the fridge and you can't spread it. Right. Which is just like annoying. And then you destroy the bread. So I found a nice compromise. Like one, I looked up from the nationalpeanutboard.org, which seems legit. They say that you should probably refrigerate you can leave the peanut butter unrefrigerated for like 2 or 3 months. And they don't actually say anything bad happens if you don't refrigerate it. So we got that covered. Now, my wife was convinced by that, but not swayed, so to speak. So we still need to refrigerate it. But I've found with this Costco peanut butter, it's still highly spreadable if you refrigerate it. So it's a good compromise if you have to put your peanut butter in the fridge, and it's delicious. How about yourself, Brandon?
Well, continuing on the culinary theme, I was going to recommend Instacart. So my wife does all the grocery shopping, and she has for a long time, and I hate grocery shopping. And so she was a slow convert, but I was like, hey, if you don't want to go grocery shopping, let's just do Instacart. And it's been fantastic service. So fantastic that yesterday my wife ordered 8 bananas, but they delivered 8 bunches of bananas.
Whoa!
So over 60 plus bananas at my house right now. And while we do enjoy the banana, it is going to be tough to get through them. But such as the dilemma of modern technology, sometimes it goes astray. They didn't charge us extra or anything. We just got a whole bunch of bananas. But we still love Instacart, and it's been a huge time saver in my house. So, and then I'm sure you can get peanut butter on Instacart as well.
Yeah,
you can freeze those bananas.
Yeah, we did. So I should say we froze them for as everybody that watched Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. I'm sure everyone on this listening is a frequent watcher. We'll make banana swirl. We'll be making that at my house later tonight. We'll have plenty of banana swirl. So, and we do refrigerate the peanut butter, but I am going to try to take it out when I get home.
If you've got too many bananas, freeze them and eat them later.
There you go, Coach A.
Yeah.
There it is.
That's a regular tally me on demand service right there. That's 6 bunches of bananas. So how much do the Instacart people pay? Get paid? What kind of bump in price are we looking at here, Brandon?
I don't know. I know it's just worth it. I think it's maybe like $10 or $20. It's totally worth it. Like the grocery
they figured out their pricing.
I was gonna say it is. The grocery bill is not so significantly higher that I'm like, whoa, we should all go grocery. I'm just like, thank God we didn't have to go do all that. So I think it's a great deal. I'm sure. I think it's fairly priced to our earlier conversation. Fairly priced.
How about yourself, Matt Ray? What chestnuts do you want to leave people with?
So I just finished listening to an audiobook of the travel writer Bill Bryson. He's got a book about Australia called In a Sunburned Country. It was a very enjoyable 15 or so hours of listening. But he went to Australia like 3 or 4 times, spent 2 or 3 months exploring much of the country. Very entertaining book. I learned a whole lot about Australia. It's about 2 orders of magnitude bigger than Texas, but has less people. So
yes. I have recently learned that if you have one of your colleagues in Australia, you can't just ask them if they want to go to a conference in Australia.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it might be very far.
Yes. Everything is far. You're like, but it's just Australia. How far can it be? It's like, oh, it's still, an 18-hour flight to Tokyo. So it's not conveniently located. But I think my favorite part of the story was, he's got kind of a David Sedaris kind of delivery as he's reading it, but talking about the prime minister in the 70s drowned. He went swimming on a private beach, the military beach, and he drowned. And nobody was there with him. Just, the president or the prime minister just goes off and swims off by himself and happens to drown. They never find his body. And he's there visiting the beach, and he asked the the park ranger, like, so is there a memorial for him anywhere? It's like, oh yeah, there's one back in Melbourne. He's like, back in Melbourne, what is it? It's a pool. and then, and the author's like laughing. He's like,
he loves swimming.
He's like, I love this country.
That's funny. Well, on that delightful note, this has been Software Defined Talk, which you can always find available at softwaredefinedtalk.com. I don't think we have any other domain names. And you can find the show notes for this episode, including that 20% off discount and your 2 free months. You could use the savings of that 20% to pay for a $9 a month service that you've been hung up on not getting. But if you go to the show notes, you can go to cote.io/SDT42 and find all the fabulous links. And thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.